I'd like to talk with you about two numbers. And the first one is this one. 0. The defense is right. We're going to tell you that what you just heard is a lot of nonsense. And the reason why it's nonsense is the defense has no credible evidence to back up any of their theories as to why the state is wrong. Let's start out with Michael Cochran himself. They have a very schizophrenic approach to Michael Cochran. One theory of the defense is he was this macho, bodybuilding, fit guy, athlete, Jeep pulling, super stud guy. That's one theory. Now they have some evidence that he was very concerned about his fitness, very concerned about his appearance. We would agree with that. But did that lead to his death? Zero evidence to support that. On the other side, oh my gosh, the guy was a ticking time bomb. The defense words, a ticking time bomb. He was so sickly. He was essentially a guy with 1 foot in the grave and 1 foot on a banana peel. They don't really have any evidence of that either. He was just a normal 38-year-old healthy male. And a good guy by all accounts. So the hospitalizations that they've relied upon to tell you how sickly this man was, where did most of the information come from that? Medical records. Who provided histories for that? The defendant. The defendant told the doctors all of these things about Michael Cochran. It didn't come from other reliable sources. It came from a very unreliable source, her. So his suspected brain mass, his suspected convulsions, his suspected all of these problems, there was no diagnosis of any of those things. They were suspected. And they were suspected because she told them to suspect that stuff. But there was never a diagnosis. Even their own experts confirmed that. There are other witnesses. The fact that the Davises talked to a nurse to have Natalie Cochran, their emergency contact, that's not the same thing as authorizing treatment by Natalie Cochran of any child. There's zero evidence of that. There is evidence on the other side. The Davises told you they never gave the defendant insulin for the benefit of their child. Never. Both Davises told you that. As recently as yesterday, the defense was still putting that theory out there for you to consider. There's no evidence to support that. Zero. Mr. Treadway's testimony was Mr. Treadway's testimony. This is a guy that didn't want to help the police. Even though his best friend was dead, he wouldn't talk to him. And he had some newspaper article he said gave him justification for that. That's on him. Treadway's got to live with that. But he didn't bring anything of substance to this case, did he? No. The two children that testified, they are tragic figures. They have had a terrible 6 years. They lost their dad. For the time being, they've lost their mom. But they were little kids. And their testimony had a certain ring to it. They both picked up on the same word, agitated. That's an unusual word. Rolling back time 6 years, think that the oldest was 20. She was 14 at the time. And that's how she's going to describe her dad the last few weeks of his life, the word agitated. Her brother, the same word, and he was younger than her. There's something odd about that. The state believes that they sincerely believe their recollection. But does it make sense? Would kids that age really be that involved in their parents' business? Would they? Well, it's possible, but that's not very likely. The defense experts, nice people, very sincere, but they're in a little silo. If those forensic pathologists can't cut on a dead body and come up with a smoking gun reason, then their opinion was they won't give you a cause of death or a manner of death. Even though Dr. Banerjee said, oh no, we don't do this in darkness. We look at all the facts, we look at all the circumstances, and the autopsy is just a part of the process of determining these things. But was it? Did she have any facts that were right at all? She had a few, but not many. And in her own report, she said, if other information is brought to my attention, I reserve the right to change my opinion. Well, she had a bunch of other information, but she still wouldn't change her opinion. Why not? That's just her mindset. Did she have any experience in insulin cases? This was her first case, her first one. Dr. Drakovich, apparently he didn't have any insulin experience either. Now the defense told you that the state has just gone all over the lot with its theories. Is that your recollection of the evidence? Did you hear any state witnesses say there was one injection of insulin? No. Did you say multiple? Because we don't know. But there are some things that we do know. Now let's talk a little bit about how that balances out what the defense just told you. There's a lot of circumstances that need your consideration. First of all, this is a trained pharmacist, a pharmacist who knows about all sorts of medication, the impact of the medication, the dosage of medication. Beyond that, this defendant held herself out as a diabetes specialist. A diabetes specialist. That's another circumstantial piece of evidence to keep in your mind. On February 6th of 2019, on the basis of a supposed counterbalance to her cancer treatment, she needs to borrow a bottle of insulin. Another circumstance that needs to be held in the back of your mind. Because on that day, they were supposed to fly to the Bank of America. And yes, there is a merger with the federal case and this case, and that's where the merger takes place. You heard Trooper Heinzman discuss all of the things that the defendant had told her investors about the money that was supposed to be coming in, the money that was going to be coming in, the money that was almost going to come in, and it never did. Who else did she tell that to? Michael Cochran. So when the defense says, oh, he was up to his eyeballs in this, was he? Does the evidence support that? They have zero evidence to support that theory. Zero evidence. He did live a lavish lifestyle, but if he thought that the money was there for good cause and that the business was just supporting that lifestyle, was there anything wrong with that? Of course not. But this was a person who ran a Ponzi scheme. And the one thing you can count on for people that run Ponzi schemes is they will do whatever they can to keep it going. Is that what she did? That's exactly what she did. She was still shucking and jiving after Michael Cochran died. Right up until they executed the search warrant, she was doing ordinary business. Selling the non-existent contracts, trying to get people to invest. So there is zero evidence that Michael Cochran was up to his eyeballs in this, but this defendant was up to her eyeballs and over her head in this fraud scheme. by their own admission. Second number. $21. That's a big number. And that's the number we're going to rely on to convince you beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant killed Michael Cochran. That number was the number of his blood glucose level at Raleigh General Hospital at 8:30, the day of his collapse. Now, unlike the defense witnesses, the state witnesses were unified and very clear as to what caused that 21 number. Dr. Krieger had 13 likely causes of low blood sugar, hypoglycemia. She eliminated all but insulin. And she's got a good reason for all of them. You heard her testimony. All of those were potentially valid causes of the condition that led to the brain swelling, that led to the death of Michael Cochran, all of them. But she eliminated by logic and by her scientific skills and experience in insulin cases that it had to come from insulin. Dr. Uribe, another experienced insulin investigator. Both of those two were involved in the Clarksburg VA murder cases where a nurse was killing veterans with insulin. Those two were the government's star witnesses. They know what they're talking about when it comes to insulin. And it comes to insulin killing people. That's what they do. So that 21 was never overcome by a single shred of credible evidence by the defense. Not once. No one's told you from the state that there were single injections, multiple injections. We don't know the answer to that. We do know that Michael Cochran's death was caused by insulin and reducing his blood sugar to a fatal level, and the resulting changes in his brain killed that man. Circumstantial evidence is the basis of this case, and let's get this a nice, straightforward example of what that is. It's January in Raleigh County. You look outside your window and you see frost on your neighbor's truck, frost on the ground. Stars are out, moon may be out. You go to bed. You wake up the next morning and there's 8 inches of snow on top of the truck and on top of your grass. Did you see it snow? No. Did it snow? You absolutely know it did. That's circumstantial evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, the state of West Virginia has dumped a blizzard of circumstantial evidence on this defendant. Until today, 2 weeks in an American courtroom, and until today, you never heard the word justice. Well, do justice for Michael Cochran. Find this defendant guilty of first-degree murder, because that's exactly what she did. Thank you.